LeBron at 41 is impossible. And here's the thing. We're not just watching greatness anymore. We're watching something that breaks how we understand time in professional sports. This isn't a late career farewell tour. This isn't a legend hanging on for nostalgia. This is LeBron James still impacting games, still dictating pace, still showing up in moments that decide seasons. And the craziest part? Nobody can fully explain how he's still doing it. I've got 4 reasons why what LeBron is doing at this age doesn't make sense, and why the league hasn't figured out how to deal with it. Let's get into it. You're watching The Sports Verdict Daily, where we break down the biggest stories in American sports every single day and give you the final call. I'm your host. Let's get into today's verdict. So here's what went down. Most NBA careers don't make it past the mid-30s at a high level. By the time players reach 38, 39, 40, the story is usually the same. Reduced minutes, reduced impact, flashes of brilliance surrounded by physical decline. But LeBron didn't follow that script. He rewrote it. At 41, he's not just playing. He's still relevant in games that matter. Still capable of taking over stretches. Still reading the floor like a chess master surrounded by players reacting a second too late. To understand why this is so unusual, you have to understand what aging normally does to athletes. Explosiveness fades, recovery slows, injuries linger longer, decision-making might improve, but the body stops cooperating. With LeBron, that equation doesn't balance. The body hasn't followed the timeline, and that's where things start to feel impossible. First, his physical maintenance is on another level. This isn't luck. This isn't genetics alone. This is discipline stretched across decades. We're talking about year-round conditioning, recovery protocols, nutrition, sleep, and a level of investment into his body that most athletes simply don't sustain for that long. And here's what most people miss. It's not just about staying in shape. It's about adapting. LeBron doesn't play the same way he did at 25. He doesn't need to. He's adjusted how he uses his energy when he attacks, when he slows the game down, when he lets others carry stretches. What that tells us is simple. Longevity isn't just about surviving. It's about evolving. Second, his basketball IQ might be at its peak. When physical tools start to fade for most players, they rely more on experience. But with LeBron, experience hasn't just compensated, it's elevated him. He sees plays before they happen. He understands defensive schemes instantly. He knows where the mismatch will appear before the defense even realizes it's there. And that creates an unfair advantage, because while younger players rely on speed and reaction, LeBron relies on anticipation. And anticipation beats reaction almost every time. That's why he can still control games without needing to dominate every possession physically. Third, here's what most people are missing. Pressure doesn't affect him the same way anymore. Think about it. What pressure is left? He's already won championships, already broken records, already built a legacy that will be debated for generations. At this stage, he's playing with clarity. No fear of failure. No need to prove anything, just execution. And that mindset is dangerous, because when a player with that level of experience stops worrying about outcomes, they become freer, more decisive, more willing to take the moment when it comes. That's why you still see flashes of takeover LeBron, because mentally, he's not carrying the same weight younger stars are. Before I get to the next level of this, there's one more piece of the story that completely reframes everything. Stay with me. LeBron's longevity isn't just about him, it's changing expectations for everyone else. For decades, we've had a clear idea of what an NBA career looks like. Rise in your 20s, peak in your late 20s or early 30s, decline after that. LeBron has disrupted that timeline. Now teams, players, and even fans are starting to ask a different question. How long can greatness actually last? Because if one player can push the limit this far, maybe the limit wasn't as fixed as we thought, and that's where his impact goes beyond stats. He's redefining possibility. Fourth, he still picks his moments better than anyone. LeBron doesn't need to dominate every quarter to control a game. He understands timing better than almost any player in history. He knows when to attack a mismatch, when to push the pace, when to slow things down, when to let teammates shine. And when the moment calls for it, he can still take over. That's what makes him so effective at this stage. He's not wasting energy trying to prove he's still elite. He's showing it in the moments that matter most. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. He's not the same player he used to be. Of course, he's declined. And honestly, that's fair. He's not the explosive force he was in his prime. He doesn't dominate every possession the way he once did. But here's why that doesn't change the verdict. The standard isn't his past self. The standard is everyone else. At 41, the comparison isn't to prime LeBron. It's to every other player at that age. And in that context, what he's doing is unheard of. The counter-argument would hold if he were just a role player at this stage. But that's not the situation. He's still influencing outcomes, still commanding defensive attention, still shaping games, and that's what makes it so difficult to explain, because usually time wins. It always has. It always does. But with LeBron, time is being delayed, managed, controlled in a way that doesn't follow the usual rules, and maybe that's the real answer. It's not that nobody can explain what he's doing. It's that the explanation isn't simple. It's years of discipline, evolution, intelligence, and mindset all working together at a level we don't often see. But even then, it still feels unreal when you watch it. So here's the final call. LeBron at 41 is impossible, not because it defies logic completely, but because it stretches the limits of what we thought was possible for an NBA career. Because in a league where time usually ends greatness, he's still extending it. Keep an eye on how he manages games, how he chooses moments, and how he continues to adapt. That's where you'll see the real story. Not in the highlights, but in the control. That's the Sports Verdict Daily Take. Greatness isn't just about how high you rise, it's about how long you can stay there. If you made it this far, you already know the deal. Subscribe to the Sports Verdict Daily, hit the bell, and you'll get the call on every major story in American sports every single day. Drop your take in the comments. Is what LeBron is doing the greatest longevity story in sports history? Or are we overreacting? Let's hear it. I'll see you tomorrow. Same time. Next verdict.